Have you ever had a best friend who felt like your whole world, only to watch them drift away? Two inseparable friends are torn apart by time, distance, and the harsh reality of life. Messages grow fewer, memories start to fade, and what once felt unbreakable slowly turns into a distant past. As they walk different paths, one question lingers: can true friendship survive the test of time, or is it destined to become just a bittersweet memory? In the opening of the film, we see a boy and a girl. The boy's name is Takaki, while the girl's name is Shinohara. Both children had relocated to the city from different places due to their parents' job transfers. The children were young, in the 4th grade. They came from different schools. Consequently, neither of them had any old friends. Many aspects of their lives were alike. Because of this, they engaged in many conversations and quickly became friends. However, the other children in the class could not accept that these two were together and not with anyone else, so they began to mock them, suggesting that the two were in a relationship. Nevertheless, their friendship remained unaffected by this, even though both felt upset. It did not impact them significantly. As they grew older, their friendship continued to be strong. One day, while walking home from school, they passed by some tall sakura trees, and the leaves were falling where the stones landed. Haritaka's girl mentions to the boy that these leaves fall at a very steady pace. He became depressed and lost interest in anything. He did not feel motivated to engage in activities and paid little attention to his studies as well. He lacked many friends and had become completely isolated at school. Eventually, Takaki receives a letter from Shinohara. Upon reading the letter, Takaki feels a surge of happiness. Following that, he writes a letter back. This initiates a correspondence between the two through letters. Given that this is the 90s, it's clear that there were no cell phones. It was the era of letters, so they communicated solely through written correspondence. They continued in this manner, and after some time, Takaki's father informs him that he too will be transferred, and he will be moving even further away from this city. After that, Takaki measures the distance between himself and Shinohara, along with the location where he is going to be relocated, discovering that the island is even more distant, indicating that he will be very far from Shinohara. He ponders that if he travels such a long distance, he will encounter Shinohara before that. At that moment, he felt quite special. However, he still organizes everything for a meeting with Shinohara, reviewing the train routes, planning everything required for his journey, and documenting all of this in a letter as well. Takaki believes that by the time he arrives at Shinohara's place, it will be evening, and Shinohara was also very excited that she would finally meet Takaki. The most significant challenge arises when Takaki boards the train, sits down, but snowfall begins, and it is quite intense. As the journey progresses, the snowfall continues to intensify. Consequently, the train had to halt midway, and simultaneously the snow was being cleared. The delay of the train was considerable, and it was also running remarkably late. Takaki was traveling such an extensive distance for the first time, as he was still quite young and not very large, so he felt hesitant, frightened, and anxious. Takaki then retrieves a letter from his pocket, which he had prepared for Shinohara. He had poured all his emotions into it. However, by accident, the letter is swept away by the wind. It seems Takaki had probably expressed many heartfelt sentiments inside it, but unfortunate for him, the letter flew far from his reach, and he might not be able to convey those feelings to Shinohara. Someone is waiting for you somewhere else, while you are on a train, making the passage of time quite difficult. Takaki contemplated whether Shinohara would be there or not, or if she might have left, but his uncertainty ended when he disembarked from the station, and Shinohara was still there waiting for him, even in the late hours of the night. Shinohara approaches Takaki and calls out to him, then she grabs Takaki's jacket and begins to cry loudly because she was worried that something might have happened to Takaki or why he had been delayed. Following this, we see that Shinohara had brought a lot of food for Takaki. They both spend considerable time together eating, but soon it was time for the railway station to close, prompting the station master to ask them to leave. They go to a tree, which was a cherry blossom tree. Although it was not the season, ice balls had formed above it, and small ice drops along with dewdrops were falling on them, giving the impression that they were beneath the sakura tree, with the blossom leaves cascading down on them. And afterward, inside the dice, there was a small house. Takaki spends the night there. Instead of feeling happiness, he felt more depressed than joyful because he realized that the next day he would lose everything. The following day, he would be far from Shino and perhaps would never see her again. Shinohara faced the same uncertainty and immediately hugs Takaki. The next day, Takaki had a train, and Shinohara had come with him to bid farewell. They find it difficult to have a conversation, and then Takaki's train departs, taking him away. It is revealed that Shinohara also wrote a letter filled with many unexpressed feelings. This seems to conclude the first part of the story. After this, the second part of the story begins. Now we see Takaki, but there is also another girl introduced alongside him. This girl's name is Kanaya. While a love triangle is not directly illustrated, there is still a noticeable triangular dynamic. After Takaki was transferred to a distant location, he enters a new school. When Takaki first steps into his new class, Kanaya notices him, and upon seeing her, he develops a crush on her and starts to like her. Kanaya also didn't speak much, but would often glance at Takaki in secret. Eventually, Kanaya began conversing with Takaki, who realized that Kanaya was a nice girl, leading him to engage in conversation with her from time to time. Takaki had started a new activity, which was archery, so he would attend his classes. Kanaya would wait for him once his classes concluded, and then both of them would head home together. They both owned a scooter-type vehicle, so they would travel home together. Takaki enjoyed accompanying Kanaya because at least he had someone to ride with. Kanaya noticed that Takaki had a phone with him during that time, and he would type messages on it, but she was unaware of whom he was messaging. Their school was nearing its end, and all the children had thought about what they would do next, but Kanaya had not given any thought to her own plans. She was a girl who was lost in her own thoughts. Kanaya had little interest in her future. Her parents and teachers would advise and counsel her regarding what steps she should take. Kanaya continued to wait for a day, but Takaki had yet to arrive. After a lengthy wait, she eventually leaves and spots Takaki's scooter along the way. He was sitting on a distant mountain and was messaging someone, so she climbs up, sits down, starts conversing, and inquires, "Where will you go after completing school, and what are your plans?" Takaki responds that he is headed to Tokyo. He plans to enroll in a college there, and he hasn't considered anything beyond that. Kanaya feels sad upon hearing this because she suspected that Takaki would eventually leave, and now it seemed inevitable. Meanwhile, she realizes that she has not thought about her future either, and reflects on how foolish she has been. Takaki then reassures her that it's not like that, and in fact, he doesn't know anything about his own life either. He states, "I am also always lost, and it is not your fault. In fact, I am just like you." Now, Takaki's phone is displayed where he constantly types messages. However, he did not send those messages to anyone. Instead, after expressing his thoughts, he would erase them. He used to pen all of these things as if he were writing to his childhood friend, Shinohara. In the background, it is disclosed that Takaki relocated to his new island. At first, he received letters from Shinohara, but over time, the frequency of letters diminished. Ultimately, there came a time when he stopped receiving letters from her altogether. Takaki believed that perhaps Shinohara had moved forward in her life, and there was no sense in bothering her. Yet, Takaki had not forgotten Shinohara to this day. In fact, no single day went by when he did not think of her. Even in his dreams, Shinohara was always present, implying he had envisioned a lifetime with her. Following this, the scene transitions to Kanaya. She had come to the seaside to surf, but despite practicing for months, she still struggled to surf well. Kanaya's older sister asked her if she had contemplated what she wanted to pursue. Kanaya replied with the same words that Takaki had once shared with her, that she was unsure of what she wanted to do in the future, but she was aware of what she was doing currently, and she intended to give her best effort in it. Ultimately, she returns to surfing, and this time her performance is impressive. She believes she has finally mustered the courage to tell Takaki about her feelings for him. Archery class was nearly over, and Takaki was about to arrive. Kanaya was in a very anxious state, pondering how she would confess to him. Takaki had already made his entrance, and as they strolled towards their scooters, Kanaya hesitated. She tugged at Takaki's shirt, and he inquired about what was wrong. However, Kanaya lacked the bravery to confess. Both were on the verge of heading to their respective homes when Kanaya noticed her scooter had broken down. Takaki proposed that they walk home together, which made Kanaya very happy. As they walked, an unusual silence enveloped them. Kanaya struggled to find the words to convey her feelings. When she could not muster the courage to confess, she began to cry. She became so overwhelmed that Takaki asked her what was wrong. Kanaya attempted to conceal her emotions and stated that nothing was the matter. Takaki asked her once more, urging her to reveal what had transpired. In her thoughts, Kanaya repeated, "I'm sorry. Why do you treat me so kindly? I implore you to keep your distance from me, or I will break down at this moment." At that instant, both of them witnessed a rocket launch, causing Kanaya to fall silent, fixated on it. It appeared just like a shooting star. As they approached Kanaya's residence, she halted and recognized something. Takaki harbored no special feelings for her. Even as he departed, he did not pause for her nor glance back. To Takaki, Kanaya was merely a close friend, which is why he seldom discussed his emotions with her. Kanaya resolved that if she held no significance for Takaki, there was little reason to confess. From then on, she decided never to disclose her affection for Takaki. However, she understood deep down that she would always remember her feelings for him. She drifted off to sleep, contemplating this. And with that, the second chapter of the tale came to a close. Following this, the narrative transitions to the third chapter, titled 5 centimeters per second. By this period, the timeline had advanced to 2008. Takaki resided in Tokyo and was employed as a developer. Nonetheless, the most significant individual in his life remained Shinohara. He had never succeeded in forgetting her. He would compose various messages to her, but would invariably erase them. Gradually, he became increasingly lost in his reflections. Previously, his sorrow was manageable, but now he felt so despondent that it disrupted his personal life. It is disclosed that Takaki had a new companion who had been cohabiting with him for several years. She frequently texted him, encouraging him to move on from his past. However, Takaki showed no interest in her. The unfortunate girl felt isolated and ultimately departed. But Takaki was indifferent to this. By that time, he had resigned from his job and started working remotely. Nonetheless, being indoors constantly caused him to sink deeper into melancholy. He began articulating feelings of extreme unease. Everything appeared bleak and void to him. He was oblivious to where he was or what he was doing. The scene then transitions to Shinohara. After numerous years, she had come back to her hometown. A ring on her finger signifies that she had moved on and was now engaged. While sifting through her childhood belongings, she stumbled upon a letter from Takaki. Reading it evoked nostalgic memories, and she found herself longing for him. Memories of how joyful she had been with Takaki during her childhood flooded her thoughts. Even though she had progressed in her life, she was not genuinely content. At this moment, it becomes clear that both Takaki and Shinohara had a dream about one another simultaneously. In their dream, they found themselves together once more in the location where they had last encountered each other, beneath that tree. They had always desired to witness the cherry blossoms together at least once during their lives. Subsequently, we observe Shinohara getting ready for her wedding. While she was en route to Tokyo for shopping, she passed a railway track where she had previously seen cherry blossoms falling from a tree during her childhood, back when she was with Takaki. At the exact same instant, Takaki was also passing through the same area. They stood directly in front of each other. However, neither recognized the other. Instead, they merely sensed an odd, faint presence, similar to knowing that someone significant was close to them. As they walked past each other, both turned around to see who it was. But at that moment, a train traveled between them. By the time the train cleared, Shinohara had already vanished from view. Takaki remained there, observing, and then he smiled, almost as if he realized that it had been Shinohara. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.